A racist Karen humiliates black scientist on a bus. What happens next is shocking. Dr. Aisha Johnson stepped onto the bus clutching a worn leather satchel filled with research notes and a laptop. The atmosphere inside was thick with the scent of morning coffee and the low hum of conversation. Aisha's heart raced as she found a seat toward the back, her mind buzzing with thoughts of the conference. In just a few hours, she would stand in front of some of the brightest minds in astrophysics, presenting her groundbreaking research on dark matter. It was a pivotal moment in her career, one she had worked tirelessly towards. As the bus jolted forward, Aisha pulled out her laptop, her fingers dancing over the keyboard as she reviewed her presentation slides. She had rehearsed them countless times, but the thought of presenting in front of a large audience still made her stomach churn. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of her purpose. This was bigger than just her. It was about representation, about showing young black girls that they too could aspire to be scientists. Suddenly, a sharp voice cut through her concentration. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" Aisha looked up to see a middle-aged white woman, her face contorted in a mix of annoyance and curiosity. "No, it's free," Aisha replied, offering a polite smile. The woman sat down, her purse spilling onto the floor as she settled in. "You don't look like the type who should be on this bus," she remarked, her tone dripping with condescension. Aisha's smile faltered. She felt the warmth of embarrassment creeping up her neck. Here we go. She had encountered this kind of ignorant judgment before, but it never got easier. "I'm just heading to a conference," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. The woman scoffed. "A conference? What kind of conference would someone like you go to?" Aisha's heart sank. The woman's words hung in the air, heavy with implications. Someone like you. It was an all-too-familiar phrase that echoed the biases she had faced throughout her academic journey. Aisha took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm. "I'm an astrophysicist," Aisha stated, her voice firmer this time. "I'm presenting my research on dark matter." The woman's eyes widened, a mixture of disbelief and disdain. "Astrophysicist? That's cute. But you know, it's not all about race. Science is for everyone, and there are just some people who are more suited for it." Karen leaned back in her seat, crossing her arms as if she had just delivered a profound truth. Aisha's stomach twisted. The bus rattled along the road, the noise of the engine drowning out her thoughts. Should I ignore her? But the thought of letting such ignorance slide felt wrong. "Actually," Aisha said, her voice rising above the noise, "science is for everyone, but historically it hasn't been accessible to everyone. That's why diversity in the STEM is crucial." Karen rolled her eyes, her expression dismissive. "Oh, please, save me the lecture. You don't even look like you belong in a lab. What's next? You'll tell me you're going to be the next Einstein?" Aisha clenched her hands around her laptop. Why do people like this always have to make it personal? The other passengers were starting to notice, their heads turning slightly, curiosity piqued by the unfolding drama. "Einstein was a genius, and so are many scientists of all backgrounds," Aisha replied, her voice unwavering. "I'm proud of my work, and I believe I deserve to be here just as much as anyone else." Karen leaned forward, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Sure, sweetie, but let's be real. The world of science isn't made for people who come from your background. You're just taking up space." Aisha felt a rush of heat wash over her. The pressure of the moment was suffocating. How could someone be so ignorant? She glanced around the bus, searching for support. A few passengers were watching with interest, some with disdain, and others seemed too engrossed in their phones to care. "Excuse me," Aisha said, addressing the bus driver, who had just glanced in the rearview mirror. "Can you help me here?" The driver, a middle-aged man with a kind face, met Aisha's gaze. "What's going on back there?" he asked, concern etched in his features. "Just a little misunderstanding," Aisha replied, trying to keep her composure. "I'm trying to explain that diversity is essential in science." Karen scoffed, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Oh, isn't that just precious? You think your little speech is going to change anything? Science is about facts, not feelings." Aisha's frustration boiled over. "And what fact are you using to justify your prejudice? That I don't belong here? Because I can assure you, I've worked harder than you can imagine to earn my place." The tension in the bus thickened, and Aisha could feel the eyes of the passengers on her, some surprised, some amused. It was a pivotal moment, one that could either empower her or push her further down the path of humiliation. "Why don't you just sit back and enjoy the ride?" Karen shot back, her voice a mix of anger and entitlement. "This is why people like you shouldn't have a voice in the first place." Aisha's heart raced. She could feel the anger boiling inside her, mixed with a sense of urgency. This was not just about her. It was about every person who had faced discrimination and prejudice. "I refuse to be silent," Aisha declared, her voice steady and loud enough to command attention. "Racism and ignorance have no place in our society, especially in fields that shape our understanding of the universe." The bus was silent for a moment, the weight of Aisha's words hanging in the air. Some passengers shifted uncomfortably, while others nodded slightly, as if in agreement. "Do you really think your little speech will change anything?" Karen said, her voice quieter now, but still tinged with hostility. "I'm not here to change everyone's mind," Aisha replied, "but I am here to stand up for myself and others like me who have been silenced for too long. Science is for everyone, and I deserve to be here." Aisha's heart pounded in her chest. She could see a few passengers glancing at each other, some whispering quietly. Maybe she was making an impact after all. But Karen wasn't finished. "You think you're so special, don't you? Just because you have a fancy degree? But let's not forget, this is a public bus, and people like you are ruining it for everyone else." Aisha felt the room spinning. This was not just a battle for her dignity. It was a battle against a lifetime of biases. The bus continued to roll forward, each bump on the road punctuating the tension in the air. "Look around," Aisha said, gesturing to the other passengers. "You're not the only one who rides this bus. We all have stories, and we all have the right to be heard." As the bus approached a stop, Aisha's mind raced. This was a pivotal moment, and she could feel herself standing at the edge of something much larger than this confrontation. What would happen next? Would she continue to fight for her voice, or would she retreat into silence, letting Karen's words define her? Just then, the bus driver announced, "Next stop, Main Street. Everyone ready?" Aisha took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. She wasn't going to let this moment pass without making her voice heard. The bus jolted to a stop, and Aisha felt the tension in the air intensify. Karen's glare was like a spotlight, illuminating the prejudices that had so often hovered in the background of Aisha's life. As the doors hissed open, a few passengers shifted uncomfortably, some glancing at Aisha with a mix of sympathy and apprehension. "Get off and let the real scientists take the bus," Karen sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. Aisha held her ground, the weight of her identity pressing down on her. This wasn't just about her, it was about representation, about breaking the stereotypes that had plagued her for years. "Karen, isn't it?" Aisha said, her voice calm, yet firm. "Let's be real. This isn't about my qualifications. This is about your discomfort with seeing someone who doesn't fit your narrow view of a scientist." The bus remained still, the only sound the distant hum of traffic outside. Aisha noticed a few passengers nodding slightly, some even murmuring their agreement. The dynamic in the bus shifted, and she could sense that her words were having an effect. "You think you're so noble," Karen shot back, her voice rising. "But the truth is, people like you are just playing the victim card. You're not special." Aisha's heart raced. How could someone be so blind to the truth? "It's not about being special, Karen. It's about equality. It's about making sure that everyone has a seat at the table, regardless of their background." The words hung in the air, reverberating off the metal walls of the bus. Aisha felt a surge of energy. She was no longer just defending herself. She was advocating for all those who had been marginalized in their fields. One of the passengers, a young man with headphones around his neck, finally spoke up. "You're absolutely right. We need more diversity in science. It's a shame that people still hold these outdated views." Aisha turned to the young man, her heart swelling with appreciation. "Thank you. It's important for us to stand together against this kind of ignorance." Karen's expression twisted in anger, her voice rising again. "And what do you know? You're just a kid. You haven't seen the real world yet." "I may not have seen everything yet," the young man replied, "but I can see clearly that prejudice has no place in our society." Aisha felt a flicker of hope. This was becoming a community conversation. Passengers were beginning to engage, some whispering to each other, others nodding in agreement. It was empowering to witness. "Maybe you should take your own advice, Karen," Aisha said, leaning forward slightly. "You might learn something if you opened your mind instead of shutting others down." Karen huffed, crossing her arms defiantly. You think this is a debate? I'm just speaking the truth. You don't have to like it. Aisha took a deep breath, steadying herself. Speaking the truth shouldn't come at the cost of someone else's dignity. You can have your opinions, but when those opinions harm others, we have a problem. Just then, the bus driver glanced back again, clearly uncomfortable with the escalating situation. Ladies, let's try to keep it civil. We're all just trying to get where we're going. Aisha nodded, appreciating the driver's attempt to diffuse the tension. Thank you. I just want to stand up for what's right. It's not just about this moment, it's about the future. The bus rolled to a stop again, and a few more passengers boarded, casting curious glances at the ongoing confrontation. Aisha could feel the pressure building, but she wasn't about to back down. Look, Aisha said, turning her attention back to Karen. This isn't just about me as a scientist. It's about the kids who look like me, who dream of doing what I do, but are scared away by people like you. Karen's eyes narrowed, but Aisha pressed on. Every time you dismiss someone based on their appearance or background, you reinforce a system that tells them they don't belong. That's not just wrong, it's dangerous. The bus hummed with murmurs. The passengers engaged in hushed conversations as they processed Aisha's words. A few nodded, and Aisha could feel a collective shift in the atmosphere. I don't see why this matters, Karen said, but there was a slight tremor in her voice, an indication that Aisha's words were beginning to penetrate her defenses. It matters because science should reflect the diversity of the world we live in, Aisha replied, her voice steady. Innovation thrives when different perspectives come together. The universe is vast and complex, and our understanding of it should be too. At that moment, a woman in a bright yellow scarf chimed in. You're right, I've worked in tech for years, and I can tell you that diversity drives innovation. We need all kinds of voices if we want to create something meaningful. Exactly, Aisha exclaimed, feeling a wave of encouragement. And it's not just about science, it's about every field. When we uplift one another, we all rise. Karen's expression flickered, and Aisha noticed her resolve beginning to waver. But what about qualifications? Shouldn't there be standards? Of course, Aisha said, her voice calm, but those standards should be based on ability, not on biases. Everyone deserves a chance to prove themselves, regardless of where they come from. The bus continued its route, but Aisha felt a shift within her. This was more than just a confrontation. It was a moment of awakening for everyone present. As the discussion continued, Aisha noticed a woman in her late 20s taking notes on her phone. Aisha could only assume she was documenting the exchange, perhaps inspired by the dialogue unfolding in front of her. Look, Karen, Aisha said, softening her tone, I understand that change can be uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean we should ignore it. We should embrace it and work towards a better future. Karen hesitated, her brow furrowing as she processed Aisha's words. I suppose I just don't want to see standards lowered for anyone. Standards don't need to be lowered. They just need to be reevaluated, Aisha replied. We need to recognize that talent and skill come in many forms. The world is changing, and we should change with it. The bus came to another stop and more passengers boarded. Aisha caught snippets of their conversations, people discussing the ongoing exchange, some expressing support for Aisha while others whispered skepticism. As the bus rumbled forward once more, Aisha felt a sense of camaraderie growing among the passengers. It was as if they were all united in a shared realization. This was a moment to stand up against ignorance, to embrace diversity, and to demand respect. Maybe you're right, Karen finally said, her voice quieter now, as if she were grappling with her own thoughts. I've never really thought about it that way. Aisha felt a flicker of hope. It's never too late to start. We're all learning, and we can choose to be better. Just then, the bus driver announced, Next stop, Science Center. Everyone ready? Aisha's heart raced, knowing her destination was near. But she also felt a sense of accomplishment. She had stood up for herself and sparked a conversation that could ripple outward. As the bus slowed to a stop, Aisha stood up, her resolve stronger than ever. Thank you for listening, she said to the passengers, her voice clear and unwavering. Every conversation matters, and together we can make a difference. As she stepped off the bus, she turned back to see Karen still sitting there, her expression contemplative. Aisha felt a surge of gratitude. Maybe, just maybe, she had planted a seed of change. With renewed energy, Aisha walked toward the Science Center, ready to present her research and represent the voices of those who had been silenced for too long. As Dr. Aisha Johnson stepped off the bus, the crisp air of the morning wrapped around her like a refreshing embrace. The bustling sounds of the city greeted her, a blend of honking cars, distant conversations, and the rhythmic thud of footsteps on the pavement. She took a deep breath, savoring the moment, her heart still pounding from the confrontation on the bus. She had done it. Aisha had stood up for herself, and in some small way for others like her. The thought invigorated her, but as she approached the entrance of the Science Center, that exhilaration was tempered by the reality of the day ahead. She needed to focus. Her presentation on dark matter awaited, and she had to be at the top of her game. Inside the Science Center, the atmosphere was electric. Colorful banners hung from the ceiling, promoting various presentations, workshops, and panels. The buzz of excited chatter filled the air, and Aisha felt a sense of belonging amidst the sea of scientists, researchers, and students. This was her domain, a place where her work could shine. Just as she made her way through the crowd, Aisha's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and saw a notification from a social media platform. A post was trending about the bus incident, featuring a video captured by one of the passengers. Her heart sank. What had she gotten into? The video showed her confrontation with Karen, her passionate defense of diversity in science, and the reaction of the passengers. Comments flooded in, ranging from supportive to scathing. Some praised her bravery, while others dismissed her as playing the race card. Aisha felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. What if this backlash overshadowed her work? She had spent years building her reputation, and now, just as she was about to present at a prestigious conference, her moment was threatened by an unplanned viral incident. "Dr. Johnson!" A familiar voice cut through her thoughts. Turning around, Aisha spotted her colleague, Dr. Ravi Patel, waving enthusiastically as he approached. He was an astrophysicist who had mentored her during her early years in the field. "Ravi," Aisha exclaimed, forcing a smile. "Great to see you." "Did you see the post about the bus incident?" he asked, his brow raised. "It's causing quite a stir." "Yeah, I just saw it," Aisha admitted, her heart racing again. "I'm not sure how to feel about it." "It's a mixed bag," Ravi said, his tone serious. "On one hand, it's great that your voice is being heard. On the other, you know how people can twist narratives." Aisha nodded, biting her lip. "I just wanted to stand up for what's right. I didn't expect it to blow up like this." "People are drawn to conflict, especially online," Ravi replied. "But remember, you're here to present your research. Don't let it distract you. Your work is what matters most." Aisha appreciated his support, but she couldn't shake the feeling of unease. "I just hope it doesn't overshadow my presentation. I've worked too hard for that." "Focus on your work, Aisha. You've got this," Ravi said, giving her a reassuring pat on the back. "Let's grab a coffee before your session. You'll need it." They made their way to the cafe, where the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. Aisha ordered a latte and took a seat at a small table outside, the sun shining brightly as she sipped her drink. "Tell me about your presentation," Ravi prompted. "I want to hear all about your research." Aisha took a deep breath, her passion for her work igniting once more. "I've been studying dark matter and its implications for the universe. There's so much we still don't know, but my findings suggest that we might be able to detect it through gravitational lensing. It could open up new avenues for understanding not just dark matter, but also the fundamental structure of the universe." "Wow, that's incredible," Ravi said, genuinely impressed. "You're going to blow them away. Just remember to speak from the heart. You're not just presenting data, you're sharing a story." "Thanks, Ravi. I'll try to keep that in mind," Aisha replied, feeling a flicker of confidence return. As they finished their coffee and made their way back inside, Aisha's mind wandered back to the bus incident. What would Karen think if she saw her now, preparing to present at a conference? The idea of confronting her again sent a chill down her spine, but Aisha knew she couldn't let that distract her. "Just remember," Ravi said as they entered the main hall, "you're not just representing yourself. You're a voice for everyone who's ever faced discrimination in science. Use that to fuel your presentation." Aisha nodded, feeling a sense of responsibility wash over her. She wouldn't just be presenting her research. She would also be making a statement about diversity and inclusion in STEM fields. It was a dual purpose that she was ready to embrace. As they approached the auditorium, Aisha could hear the murmurs of excitement from the crowd inside. The session before hers was wrapping up, and she could see attendees bustling around, exchanging thoughts and ideas. Aisha took a moment to collect herself, closing her eyes and visualizing the presentation. "Are you ready?" Ravi asked, sensing her nervousness. "Ready as I'll ever be," Aisha replied, her voice steadying. "Remember, you've got this, and if anyone gives you trouble, just think of that bus ride," he said with a grin. Aisha chuckled, the tension easing slightly. "Right, I'll channel my inner warrior." As the previous session ended, attendees began to filter out, and Aisha took her place at the podium. The bright lights of the auditorium shone down on her, and she could feel her heart racing in her chest. She looked out at the sea of faces, some familiar, some unknown, and she felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. "Good morning, everyone," Aisha began, her voice echoing through the hall. "Thank you for being here today. I'm Dr. Aisha Johnson, and I'm thrilled to share my research on dark matter and its implications for our understanding of the universe." As she spoke, Aisha found her rhythm, her passion for the subject shining through. She shared her findings, detailing how her research could potentially lead to new methods of detecting dark matter through gravitational lensing. The audience listened intently, and Aisha felt the energy in the room shift. But in the back of her mind, the earlier confrontation lingered. What would Karen think of her now? Would she still dismiss her as unqualified? Through collaboration and the inclusion of diverse perspectives, we can unlock the mysteries of the universe, Aisha concluded, her voice ringing with conviction. It's not just about science, it's about ensuring that every voice is represented in our quest for knowledge. The audience erupted into applause, and Aisha felt a rush of elation. She had done it. She had not only shared her research, but had also made a statement about the importance of diversity in science. As she stepped down from the podium, the adrenaline coursing through her veins, Aisha was approached by a few attendees who expressed their admiration for her work. "Your presentation was inspiring," one woman said, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "Thank you. That means a lot," Aisha replied, her heart swelling with pride. Just then, her phone buzzed again. She glanced down, and her stomach dropped. The video from the bus incident was trending even more, now with thousands of views and a mix of comments, some supportive and others critical. Aisha felt a knot forming in her stomach. Why couldn't this just be about her research? "Are you okay?" Ravi asked, noticing her change in demeanor. "Just the video again," Aisha murmured, feeling overwhelmed. "It's getting out of hand. Don't let it distract you. Your presentation was powerful, and that's what matters," he reassured her. "Thanks, Ravi. I just wish people would focus on the science instead of the drama," Aisha said, her frustration bubbling under the surface. "Focus on what you can control. You've made your point, and now it's time to let your work speak for itself," Ravi said, giving her a supportive smile. Aisha took a deep breath, trying to shake off the anxiety. She had worked incredibly hard to reach this point, and she wouldn't let negativity overshadow her achievements. As the afternoon wore on, Aisha attended several other presentations, immersing herself in discussions about advancements in astrophysics and connecting with fellow scientists. The energy in the room was infectious, and Aisha began to feel a sense of belonging once more. But the shadow of the bus incident lingered in the background, a constant reminder of the prejudice she had faced. Would it ever end? As the day came to a close, Aisha found herself in a small breakout session focused on diversity in STEM. The discussion was lively, with attendees sharing their experiences and advocating for change. Aisha felt empowered, her voice strong as she contributed to the conversation. "Diversity is not just a buzzword, it's essential for innovation," she said, her passion evident. "We need to create environments where everyone feels welcome to contribute their ideas." As she spoke, Aisha noticed several faces in the audience nodding in agreement. As Aisha spoke, the atmosphere in the room shifted. She could see the spark of recognition in the eyes of her fellow scientists. Many had faced similar challenges in their careers. It wasn't just about her story, it was about a collective journey toward creating a more inclusive scientific community. "Every voice matters," Aisha continued, her conviction unwavering. "When we bring together diverse perspectives, we not only enrich the conversation, but also enhance our research outcomes. It's not just good ethics, it's good science." The audience murmured their agreement, and Aisha felt a wave of solidarity wash over her. She was no longer just a lone voice in the crowd. She was part of a larger movement advocating for change. After the session ended, several attendees approached Aisha, eager to share their thoughts. "Your perspective was refreshing," one young woman said. "I've experienced similar biases in my field, and it's encouraging to hear someone speak so openly about it." "Thank you," Aisha replied, her heart swelling with pride. "It's important for us to share our experiences. Only then can we begin to break down the barriers." As the conversations continued, Aisha noticed a familiar figure standing at the back of the room. It was Karen Thompson. The woman had a tight-lipped smile, her arms crossed as she observed the gathering. Aisha's stomach churned. What was Karen doing here? The earlier confrontation had left Aisha feeling empowered, but seeing Karen now brought back the tension of their bus ride. Determined not to let that distract her, Aisha turned back to the group, engaging in discussions about potential initiatives to encourage diversity in STEM. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling of Karen's presence lingering in the background. "Hey, is everything okay?" Robbie asked, sidling up to Aisha, his brow furrowed with concern. "I just saw Karen," Aisha admitted, her voice low. "I'm not sure what she's doing here." Robbie glanced over his shoulder, spotting Karen. "You know, she might be here to learn. It's possible this experience has made her reconsider her views." Aisha raised an eyebrow, skepticism creeping in. "You really think so? After everything she said?" "People can surprise you," Robbie replied, offering a small smile. "Maybe her coming here is a sign that she's willing to listen. Just don't let her take away from your moment." Aisha nodded, taking a deep breath. She wouldn't let Karen's presence overshadow her accomplishments. She had worked too hard for this moment. The conference continued, and Aisha attended a series of panels focused on the future of astrophysics. Topics ranged from black hole research to new theories on cosmic inflation, and Aisha felt herself getting lost in the excitement of it all. Yet as the day progressed, Aisha's thoughts drifted back to the viral video. She could see the notifications pouring in on her phone, the comments reflecting a spectrum of reactions. Some praised her courage, while others criticized her for being too outspoken. "Hey, want to grab dinner?" Robbie asked, snapping her back to the present. "I think we could both use a break." "Absolutely," Aisha replied, grateful for the opportunity to step away from the chaos. They made their way to a nearby restaurant, a cozy little place with warm lighting and a vibrant atmosphere. As they settled into their seats, Aisha felt the weight of the day's events slowly lift. "So what's your plan for the rest of the conference?" Robbie asked, pouring them both glasses of water. "I'm hoping to connect with some researchers who are working on similar projects," Aisha said, her enthusiasm returning. "I want to collaborate and explore new ideas. This could be a pivotal moment for my research." "That's the spirit," Robbie said, clinking his glass with hers. "Here's to new beginnings and bold ideas." As they dug into their meal, Aisha couldn't help but reflect on the earlier session. "You know, I really felt a connection with the audience today. It was like we were all in it together." "Exactly. That's what conferences are all about, sharing knowledge and building a community," Robbie replied. "And you did an amazing job of facilitating that conversation." Just as Aisha was about to respond, her phone buzzed again. She glanced down and saw a notification that made her stomach drop. Karen had posted a response to the viral video, framing Aisha's actions in a negative light. "She's back at it," Aisha murmured, showing the post to Robbie. In it, Karen accused Aisha of playing the victim and claimed that her outburst on the bus was simply a ploy for attention. "Wow," Robbie said, his expression darkening. "That's pretty low." Aisha felt a wave of frustration wash over her. "I can't believe she's trying to spin this narrative. I thought maybe she'd learn something." "Some people just can't admit when they're wrong," Robbie said, shaking his head. "Don't let it get to you. You know the truth." "It's just frustrating," Aisha admitted, her voice thick with emotion. "I wanted this to be about my research, about promoting diversity in science. Now it feels like I'm back in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons." "Remember what you said earlier. This is about more than you. It's about paving the way for others," Robbie reminded her. "And your work is still valid regardless of what Karen says." "Yeah, you're right," Aisha said, taking a deep breath to steady herself. "I've worked too hard to let her negativity overshadow my achievements." As they finished their meal, Aisha felt a renewed sense of determination. She would not allow Karen's words to define her. Aisha was on a mission to change the narrative, and she wouldn't be silenced. After dinner, they returned to the conference center, where the evening sessions were just beginning. As Aisha walked through the bustling halls, she felt a surge of energy. This was her space, filled with individuals who shared her passion for science and discovery. "Let's see what the evening has in store," Robbie said, leading the way to an auditorium where a keynote speaker was about to take the stage. As they settled into their seats, Aisha felt her heart race with excitement. The speaker, a renowned physicist, began discussing the future of astrophysics and the importance of collaboration across disciplines. Aisha listened intently, absorbing the insights shared by the speaker. The message was clear. Progress in science requires diverse contributions from all backgrounds. With each passing moment, Aisha's conviction grew stronger. She was not just a scientist, she was a catalyst for change. And with that thought, she resolved to take control of her narrative, to ensure that her voice would be heard, not just in response to criticism, but in advocacy for a brighter, more inclusive future for all in science. The evening session concluded with enthusiastic applause, echoing through the auditorium. Aisha felt a wave of energy coursing through her veins, the words of the keynote speaker resonating deeply within her. Collaboration, diversity, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge, these were the tenets that fueled her passion for astrophysics. As the crowd began to disperse, Aisha turned to Robbie, her mind still buzzing. "That was incredible. I love hearing how interconnected our fields are. It's like we're all pieces of a puzzle." "Exactly. And the more diverse those pieces, the clearer the picture we can create," Robbie replied, his eyes glinting with enthusiasm. "We should keep this momentum going, Aisha. Let's brainstorm ways to promote diversity in our own network." "Absolutely. I've been thinking about hosting a workshop or a panel discussion," Aisha said, her mind racing with ideas. "We could invite speakers from various backgrounds to share their experiences and insights." "That's a fantastic idea. You should definitely propose it," Robbie encouraged. "And you could use the momentum from today's events to gain support." Just then, Aisha's phone buzzed again, interrupting their discussion. This time, it was a notification about Karen's latest post. Aisha hesitated before opening it, a knot tightening in her stomach. "What now?" Robbie asked, sensing her hesitation. "Karen posted again," Aisha replied, her voice laced with frustration. "She's claiming that my presentation was just a publicity stunt to gain sympathy." "That's outrageous, Robbie exclaimed, his brow furrowing. "You've put so much work into this conference. Why would she try to undermine that?" "Because some people can't stand to see others succeed, especially when it challenges their worldview," Aisha said, her voice steadying. "But I'm not going to let her derail me. I'm here for my research and to advocate for diversity." "Good. Don't give her the power to take away your focus," Robbie said, his tone supportive. "Let's channel this energy into something positive." Aisha took a deep breath, trying to shake off the frustration. "You're right. Let's focus on what we can control." With renewed determination, they made their way to the conference's networking event. The atmosphere was lively, filled with laughter and conversation as attendees mingled over drinks and hors d'oeuvres. Aisha could feel the excitement in the air, and she was eager to connect with others in her field. As they moved through the crowd, Aisha spotted a group of researchers discussing their latest findings. She approached, eager to engage. "Hi, I'm Dr. Aisha Johnson. I just presented on dark matter," she said, introducing herself with a smile. "Oh, I caught your session," one of the researchers exclaimed. "Your work is groundbreaking. I'm Dr. Kim, and this is my team. We're working on a project that intersects with your research." Aisha's excitement grew as they delved into a discussion about their findings and potential collaborations. The conversation flowed effortlessly, and Aisha felt her confidence returning. But as the night wore on, Aisha couldn't shake the feeling that Karen's presence still loomed over her. The video had gone viral, and the comments were still pouring in. Some praised her for her courage, while others bashed her for being too confrontational. "Hey, want to grab a drink?" Robbie suggested, noticing Aisha's distant gaze. "Yeah, let's do that," Aisha replied, grateful for the distraction. They made their way to the bar, where Aisha ordered a glass of red wine. As she took a sip, she could feel the tension in her shoulders begin to ease. "I really needed this," she admitted, leaning against the bar. "Me too," Robbie said, raising his glass in a toast. "To resilience and passion." "To resilience and passion," Aisha echoed, clinking her glass against his. As they chatted and laughed, Aisha felt a sense of camaraderie with her peers. The weight of the day was finally beginning to lift. But then, a familiar voice cut through the laughter like a sharp knife. "Dr. Johnson, fancy seeing you here." Aisha turned slowly and faced Karen, who stood with a smug expression, flanked by a few attendees who had likely followed her from the previous session. Aisha's heart sank. What did Karen want now? "Hello, Karen," Aisha said, her voice measured. "I just wanted to say that I appreciate your commitment to diversity," Karen said, her tone dripping with insincerity. "It's so brave of you to stand up for yourself, even if your methods are a bit unconventional." Aisha felt her pulse quicken. Was this a genuine attempt at reconciliation? Or was it more of Karen's condescending sarcasm? "Thank you," Aisha replied, choosing to keep her response neutral. "I believe it's important to advocate for change, especially in fields where representation is lacking." "Of course," Karen said, her expression shifting slightly as she leaned closer. "But don't you think it's a bit counterproductive to make such a scene? It's not how you get ahead in academia." Aisha felt her jaw tighten. Making a scene? I'd argue it's more about raising awareness. If we don't speak out against prejudice, nothing will change. Karen smirked, glancing around at the people gathered nearby. "You know, some of us would rather quietly work within the system than disrupt it. It's how the real progress happens." Aisha could feel the eyes of the other attendees on her, and she refused to back down. "And some of us believe that disruption is necessary to create real progress. Change doesn't happen in silence." Ravi stepped in, sensing the tension. "Maybe we could all benefit from hearing different perspectives," he said diplomatically. "After all, this is a networking event, and we're all here to learn from one another." Karen's expression darkened, but she quickly masked it with a forced smile. "Of course. Different perspectives are valuable, as long as they align with the mainstream views." Aisha's frustration flared. "Mainstream views have often excluded voices like mine, Karen. If we only listen to what's comfortable, we'll never grow." The tension in the air thickened, and Aisha could see that some attendees were uncomfortable with the confrontation. She felt a mix of anger and determination, knowing that she was standing up for something much larger than herself. "Perhaps you should take your own advice," Karen retorted, her voice sharper. "If you want to be taken seriously, maybe tone it down a bit. Or maybe you should consider why you feel threatened by a conversation about diversity." Aisha shot back, her voice unwavering. "It's easy to dismiss what you don't understand." The surrounding crowd was buzzing with murmurs, some whispering in support of Aisha, while others seemed unsure of where to place their allegiances. "Enough of this," Karen said, her composure faltering. "I'm just here to enjoy the conference. I don't have time for this nonsense." Aisha felt a rush of adrenaline. "This isn't nonsense, Karen. This is reality for many of us. It's time we acknowledge that." Karen huffed, her expression unreadable. "Well, I certainly don't need a lecture from you about reality." With that, Karen turned on her heel and walked away, leaving Aisha and Ravi standing amidst the murmurs of the crowd. Aisha felt a mix of satisfaction and unease. "Wow," Ravi said, glancing around at the other attendees. "That was intense, but you held your ground." Aisha took a deep breath, her heart still racing. "I didn't want to let her diminish what I believe in. This fight is bigger than just me." "You're absolutely right," Ravi agreed. "And you have a lot of people who support you. Look around. Some of them are nodding in agreement." Aisha glanced around and noticed a few attendees smiling at her, their expressions reflecting admiration and solidarity. Maybe she wasn't alone in this after all. "I just hope this doesn't escalate," Aisha said, her voice low. "I don't want this conference to become a battleground." "Neither do I," Ravi replied, his tone serious. "But sometimes, confronting these issues is necessary for progress. You've done an amazing job of sparking that conversation." Aisha nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. She wouldn't back down. This was her moment to advocate for change, not just for herself, but for others who had faced similar challenges in their careers. As the night wore on, Aisha connected with more attendees, engaging in conversations about diversity and the importance of representation in science. The energy in the room shifted, and she felt a sense of camaraderie growing among her peers. But as the event began to wind down, Aisha couldn't shake the feeling that Karen would not let this go. The confrontation had stirred the pot, and she braced herself for whatever might come next. "Let's hit the after party," Robbie suggested, sensing her tension. "I think we could both use a little fun." "Sounds great," Aisha replied, grateful for the distraction. The after party was held in a spacious, modern venue, the walls adorned with vibrant artwork from local artists. The atmosphere was lively, filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses, as scientists and researchers mingled, exchanging ideas and fostering connections. Aisha stepped into the room, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "Let's find a good spot," Robbie suggested, leading the way through this crowd. Aisha took a moment to soak it all in, the energy, the conversations, the excitement of people who shared her passion for science. As they settled into a cozy corner with a view of the dance floor, Aisha felt her tension begin to ease. She took a sip of her drink, letting the refreshing taste wash away the remnants of the confrontation with Karen. "See, this is what it's all about," Robbie said, gesturing to the animated discussions around them. "Scientists coming together to share their experiences and ideas. You're part of this community now, Aisha." "Thanks, Robbie," Aisha replied, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I really appreciate your support. It means a lot to me." Just then, her phone buzzed again, and Aisha glanced down, her heart racing as she saw another notification. This time, it was a direct message from one of the conference attendees she had met earlier, a researcher named Dr. Kim. "Hey, I saw what happened with Karen. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here. We need more voices like yours in science." Aisha felt a warmth spread through her. Support was beginning to come from unexpected places. She quickly typed a response, expressing her appreciation and willingness to connect further. "Who's that?" Robbie asked, noticing her smile. "Dr. Kim," Aisha said, showing him the message. "She reached out after the incident with Karen. It feels good to know that others are standing with me." "Absolutely. People are starting to recognize the importance of these conversations," Robbie replied. "You've sparked something, Aisha. Keep that momentum going." As they chatted, Aisha noticed a group of attendees gathered around a projector screen displaying the trending video of the bus confrontation. The room buzzed with mixed reactions, some laughing, others shaking their heads in disbelief. "Let's check it out," Aisha suggested, her curiosity piqued. They made their way through the crowd, and Aisha felt a knot forming in her stomach. The video played, showcasing her confrontation with Karen in all its unfiltered glory. The comments scrolled beneath the video, with some praising Aisha for her bravery and others mocking her for being overly dramatic. "Look at this," one attendee said, pointing to a comment. "They're saying she just wants attention." Aisha's heart sank. Why couldn't they see the importance of what she was fighting for? She felt a rush of anger and frustration. This isn't about attention, it's about representation and the need for change. "Don't let them get to you," Robbie said, his voice low as he stood by her side. "You know what you're fighting for. That's what matters." As the video played on, Aisha could see snippets of her own expressions, her determination, her passion, the way she had stood her ground against Karen. Despite the negative comments, she felt a flicker of pride. She had not backed down. "Look at the engagement," Robbie said, pointing to the number of views and reactions. "This is a conversation that people are paying attention to. You're making waves." Aisha took a deep breath, trying to process the whirlwind of emotions. "I just wish it were about the science instead of this drama." "Remember, Aisha, the science is important, but so is the conversation around it. This is all part of the narrative," Robbie replied. "You're not just a scientist, you're a voice for so many." Suddenly, Karen appeared at the edge of the crowd, her expression tight as she scanned the room, likely searching for Aisha. Aisha's heart raced. What did Karen want now? "Let's not engage," Robbie suggested, sensing Aisha's tension. "We don't need to give her any more attention." Aisha nodded, but she felt a surge of defiance. She wouldn't let Karen intimidate her. As if on cue, Karen approached, her voice dripping with feigned politeness. "Aisha, fancy meeting you here again. I just wanted to say that I admire your passion, even if I disagree with your methods." Aisha felt her spine straighten. "Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that." Karen glanced at the screen, her expression unreadable. "I just think it's important to remember that not everyone shares your views. Sometimes it's better to work quietly behind the scenes." Aisha took a deep breath, her emotions bubbling beneath the surface. "And sometimes, Karen, it's necessary to make noise to bring about real change. Change doesn't happen in silence." The tension crackled between them, and Aisha could feel the eyes of the other attendees on her. This was her moment to stand firm, to show that she wouldn't back down. Karen's expression hardened. "You're certainly not making friends with this approach. Some people might take it as a threat." Aisha's heart raced, but she stood her ground. "If speaking out for what's right is a threat, then I'll gladly accept that label. I'd rather be known for my convictions than remain silent." The crowd around them began to murmur, and Aisha could sense a shift in the atmosphere. People were captivated by the exchange, drawn into the conflict. "Maybe you should take some of your own advice," Karen said, her voice lowering. "You don't want to alienate potential allies." "I'm not interested in allies who can't acknowledge the need for change," Aisha replied, her voice steady. "I'm here to advocate for fairness and opportunity for everyone, not just those who fit a certain mold." Karen scoffed, but Aisha could see the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. For a moment, it felt like the tide was turning. "Let's not drag this out," Karen said, her tone sharper now. "I have a reputation to uphold, and I'd like to keep it that way." Aisha felt a surge of triumph. "Good. Then maybe you should reconsider how you treat others. Your reputation should reflect your character." With that, Aisha turned away, her heart racing as she rejoined Ravi, who had been watching the confrontation unfold. "You did it, Aisha. That was amazing." "I don't know if it was amazing, but I sure wasn't going to let her walk all over me," Aisha replied, her pulse still pounding. "Exactly. You stood up for yourself, and others are taking notice," Ravi said, his eyes shining with pride. "Let's celebrate that." They moved back toward the bar, and Aisha felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had confronted Karen head-on, and in doing so, she had reinforced her own beliefs. As the night progressed, Aisha found herself engaging with more attendees, discussing her research, her vision for a more inclusive scientific community, and the importance of representation in STEM fields. The conversations flowed freely, and Aisha felt a growing sense of empowerment. She was no longer just a scientist presenting at a conference. She was a catalyst for change, igniting discussions that needed to happen. But as the night wore on, Aisha couldn't shake the feeling that the confrontation with Karen was just the beginning. What would the fallout be? Would this spark more conversations, or would it ignite a backlash? As she pondered these questions, Aisha felt a renewed sense of determination. She wouldn't let fear dictate her path. She was ready to face whatever came next, armed with her voice and her convictions. The after-party continued to buzz with energy, but Aisha felt a sense of purpose anchoring her amidst the whirlwind of conversations. She had faced Karen, stood her ground, and ignited discussions that resonated with many attendees. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that the confrontation was just one piece of a much larger puzzle. As the clock ticked toward midnight, Aisha and Ravi found a quieter corner, away from the noise. "Can you believe how intense tonight has been?" Ravi asked, his eyes wide with excitement. "It's been a roller coaster for sure," Aisha replied, taking a sip of her drink. "But I feel like I've finally found my voice, like I'm ready to embrace all of this, no matter what comes next." "Exactly. You're not alone in this. You've inspired others to speak up as well," Ravi said, gesturing to a group of attendees nearby who were animatedly discussing the topic of diversity in science. "Look at them. You've sparked something here." Aisha nodded, her heart swelling with pride. "It's incredible to see so many people engaged. I just hope it continues beyond this conference." As if on cue, Dr. Kim approached, a determined look on her face. "Aisha, I wanted to talk to you about a project we're working on," she said, excitement evident in her voice. "It focuses on creating mentorship programs for underrepresented groups in STEM. I think you'd be a perfect fit to help lead some of the initiatives." Aisha's heart raced. "That sounds amazing. I'd love to be involved," she replied, her enthusiasm bubbling over. "I've always wanted to help create pathways for others in our field." "We need voices like yours," Dr. Kim said earnestly. "You've already shown that you're willing to stand up and fight for change. Let's channel that energy into something meaningful." As they discussed potential ideas, Aisha felt a renewed sense of purpose solidifying within her. This was her opportunity to make a lasting impact, not just for herself, but for all those who had faced discrimination in their careers. The hours passed, and the after-party began to wind down. Aisha exchanged contact information with several attendees, solidifying connections that she hoped would lead to collaborative efforts. As she prepared to leave, she felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. This conference had changed her in ways she never expected. "Ready to head out?" Robbie asked, standing by her side. "Definitely. I think I need a good night's sleep to process all of this," Aisha replied, a smile tugging at her lips. As they stepped outside, the cool night air greeted them, refreshing and invigorating. Aisha felt the weight of the day lifting, replaced by a sense of hope and determination. "Hey, Aisha," Robbie said, stopping her as they walked toward the parking lot. "No matter what happens with Karen or the video, just remember that you made an impact tonight. You're paving the way for others." "Thanks, Robbie. That means a lot to me," Aisha replied, her heart full. "I know there will be challenges ahead, but I feel ready to face them." As they reached their cars, Aisha glanced back at the Science Center, a sense of pride swelling within her. This was a moment of transformation, not just for her, but for the entire community. The next morning, Aisha woke to a flurry of notifications on her phone. She hesitated, but then opened them, bracing herself for the mixed reactions. To her surprise, the comments had shifted significantly overnight. Many were supportive, praising her for sparking important conversations. Some even shared their own experiences, echoing the very sentiments she had expressed during the conference. Feeling a wave of relief, Aisha smiled as she read through the encouraging messages. This was the change she had hoped for. Encouraged by the outpouring of support, Aisha decided to write a blog post detailing her experiences at the conference, including her confrontation with Karen and the importance of diversity in science. She poured her heart into the piece, determined to use her voice as a platform for change. Within days, her post gained traction, shared widely among the scientific community and beyond. Aisha felt a sense of empowerment, knowing she was no longer just a passive participant in the narrative. Then, a few weeks later, Aisha received an email that took her breath away. It was an invitation to speak at a national conference focused on diversity in STEM. The organizers had seen her blog post and wanted her to share her story, insights, and vision for a more inclusive future. Tears of joy filled Aisha's eyes as she read the email. This was her moment to expand her reach, to advocate for change on a larger scale. It was the culmination of her hard work and the spark she had ignited at the conference. When she took the stage at the national conference, Aisha spoke passionately about her experiences, the importance of representation, and the need for systemic change. The audience listened intently, captivated by her words. As she concluded her speech, Aisha was met with a standing ovation. The warmth of the applause wrapped around her like a comforting embrace, affirming her belief that she was on the right path. Aisha had faced adversity, prejudice, and doubt, but she had emerged stronger. She had transformed her pain into purpose, and in doing so, she had become a beacon of hope for others navigating similar challenges. As she stepped off the stage, a sense of fulfillment washed over her. This was just the beginning. And while Karen's words had stung, they had also fueled Aisha's fire, a fire that would continue to burn brightly as she fought for a more inclusive future in science. Aisha was ready to embrace whatever came next, empowered by her journey and the knowledge that change was possible. You've made it to the end. If you enjoyed this story, I am confident that you'll love the next one appearing on the screen now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and please give this video a like. I'll see you in the next one.